One of the greatest mysteries in the Bible surrounds a man called Melchizedek. Melchizedek was this man who is briefly mentioned in Genesis chapter 14, and you see Abraham having a contact with this man. Now, there are many different theories surrounding who is Melchizedek. The reason why there's so much speculation around him is because the way that the Bible describes him is not possible. So let me explain this whole thing. And once again, sinus infection's still there, so I apologize for the voice and how I have to be this close to the microphone, so it's kind of cutting off the top of it, whatever. See, Melchizedek was known as being the king of Salem. And when Abraham came across this guy, he realized that this guy somehow knew about Yahweh, knew about his God. And Abraham even went as far as to tithe his money to Melchizedek, meaning he gave a tenth of all that he had to this man called Melchizedek. Now, Melchizedek, in and of itself, just the name, it means so much more than we could possibly actually just correlate and imagine. Fortunately, in the book of Hebrews, it actually tells us this about his name. See, his name, Melchizedek, comes from two words, Melech and Zedek. Melech literally means king, and Zedek literally means righteousness. So the name Melchizedek literally means that he is the king of righteousness. That should stop you in your tracks just a little bit. But if not, let's keep going, because it says that he's the king of Salem. And the king of Salem is also going to be very interesting, because Salem, that word is from shalom, which means this peace, this boundless peace that can only come from God. So he is the king of righteousness and the king of peace. And Abraham tithes his possessions to Melchizedek, who somehow knows about the God of Abraham. Now, if we look in Hebrews chapter 7, this is where we get a description of him that is not possible. Listen close. So in Hebrews chapter 7, it does explain that his name means those things. But then it says that he is without father, without mother, without genealogy, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but made like the Son of Man, he remains a priest continually. See, the Bible doesn't say that Jesus is a priest in the line of Aaron. No, it says that Jesus is a priest in the line of Melchizedek, this guy who is referred to as being a priest of God. Within Hebrews, that is discussing Jesus being the high priest. And it tells us that in Hebrews 6:20. Which says, Jesus having become a high priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. So there's basically two theories that surround this. One of them is that this guy was a type of Christ, meaning that he was a forerunner of Christ. He was basically there as a foreshadow to give us some information about the coming Messiah, which is going to be Yahweh incarnate. The other theory goes into something known as a theophany or a Christophany, which we've talked about before. A theophany is where you see God manifesting in a tangible form. A Christophany specifically is when you see the Son of God, Jesus Christ, manifesting in a pre-incarnate manifestation. You see this throughout the Bible. So whenever you see God physically walking through the garden with Adam, that is Jesus. Whenever you see Manoah and his wife visited by the angel of the Lord, that is Jesus. The Malach of Yahweh, the messenger of Yahweh. That's what angel means. Angelos, Malach, messenger. The messenger of Yahweh, the angel of the Lord. When you see God physically wrestling with Jacob and then renames him Israel, which means that you have wrestled with God, that was Jesus. And so that other theory is that literally this man, Melchizedek, was a pre-incarnate manifestation of Jesus, that Abraham was literally tithing directly to God, that Melchizedek is in fact Jesus. See, tracing that back once more, you see that he's without father, without mother, without genealogy, having neither a beginning nor an end. But it even literally says that he is made like the Son of God, and he remains a priest continually. So the priest of God, the high priest of God, would be Jesus himself. The mediator of God is Jesus Christ. And so that priestly mediation is now made through the order of Melchizedek and no longer through the order or the lineage of the Levitical priests going through the line of Aaron. And so the priest of God, the messenger of God, the King of kings, the Lord of lords, the King of righteousness, the Melech Zedek, the Melchizedek, the King of peace, the Melech Shalom. That theory that says that Jesus appeared as Melchizedek, that lines up. And after tons of research, that is the view on this that I will hold to. See, you see that in John chapter 8, you see that Jesus is confronting some Pharisees. And I want to read this to you because it's interesting. He's talking about whenever Abraham saw Jesus. See, starting in verse 54 of John 8, Jesus answered, "If I glorify myself, my glory is nothing. It is my Father who glorifies me, of whom you say, he is our God, and you have not known him. But I know him. And if I say that I do not know him, I will be a liar like you. But I do know him and keep his word. Your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it, and he was glad." So the Jews said to him, "You are not yet 50 years old, and you have seen Abraham?" Jesus said to them, "Truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am." Therefore they picked up stones to throw at him, but Jesus hid himself and went out of the temple. See, what's happening here is that Jesus just said that he had seen Abraham. Abraham had been dead for about 2,000 years, and yet Jesus was saying that he saw him, saying that Abraham saw my day and was glad. And then finally, this is just the hammer on the head of this, where Jesus says, before Abraham was, ego eimi, I am. See, back in Exodus 3:14, you have another theophany. You have God appearing in a tangible form. Specifically, he's appearing to Moses in a burning bush that is not being damaged by the fire that's consuming it, which in and of itself is miraculous. It's not possible within the laws of nature. And from this burning bush, Moses hears a voice that tells him that he needs to go and he needs to free the people out of Egypt. Moses says, "Who shall I say sent me?" And God, talking from this, says, "Tell the sons of Israel that I am has sent you." God's name is I am. In the Septuagint, we see that is translated as ego eimi. So Septuagint being the Greek version, the Greek translation of the Old Testament, which also contained a few apocryphal books and other Jewish histories. That translates I am as ego eimi, which is the same terminology that we see in John 8:58. Even in John 8:24, where Jesus says, "Unless you believe that I am, you shall die in your sins." Or in Mark 14:62, when Jesus is on trial and they look at him, unable to pin any of their accusations on him, they say very declaratively, "Are you the Christ, the Son of God?" To which Jesus replies, ego eimi, I am. And you shall see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power, coming with the clouds of heaven. Immediately hearing that, the high priest tore his robes and screams out, "You've heard the blasphemy for yourself. What further need do we have for witnesses?" See, Jesus called himself God. They knew that. That was what they thought was blasphemy. Because if I or you called myself by the name of God, that is blasphemy. Same reason that in John 8:58 they picked up stones to throw at him, because the punishment for blasphemy is to be put to death. That is the only reason why Jesus was crucified, is because they thought he committed blasphemy, because he called himself God. He called himself by the eternal name of God. Which, just to take this one step further with how beautiful that is, Jesus' name would have been spoken in Aramaic, so they would have called him Isha, which in Greek would be Jesus, which then transliterated to English would be Jesus. But the Hebrew version of that is Yeshua, and Yeshua literally means the salvation of Yah, or Yahweh's salvation. Jesus' name, Jesus, literally means Yahweh's salvation. The King of Kings, the King of Righteousness, the King of Peace, Jesus Christ, the eternal God Yahweh. So cool. I hope this made sense. Let me know what's next. Follow me on X, YouTube, and Instagram. Go to taco-talks.com if you want to support me over there. Get shirts, hats, stickers, all the fun stuff, signed copies of my books. Go support me on Patreon. We do live Bible studies, so if you want to be part of something like that, come join. Let me know what other questions you guys have. Thank you guys. God bless.